everyone, and good afternoon. This is Raquel Goodrich. I'm here with Text Talk Act, and Doug Swanson is also co-hosting today's webinar. Just a couple of housekeeping items. You probably noticed we are recording this session, and we will have it available afterwards for folks that were not able to join, or if you want to go back to watch it again. All of the attendees right now are muted just to help keep the background noise as low as possible. If you do have a question, please feel free to enter it into the chat box and we'll address it as we go. We have a couple of polling questions for you to do as well once we get into the webinar. And with that, let me hand this over to Doug so that he can give the introduction from 4-H.
Well, thank you, Raquel. So my name is Doug Swanson, and I'm a National Program Leader at 4-H National Headquarters at USDA in the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And one of our responsibilities as National Program Leaders here is to provide opportunities for the 4-H programs across the country to address current and important issues of the 4-H youth. And we have become partners with the Text Talk Act, Raquel and her group over the last year, and are really excited about expanding 4-H's involvement in this effort. You'll hear from Raquel about what Text Talk Act is if you're not familiar with it, how it works, what the outcomes are, what the successes are. But what I wanted to just tell you for a minute is that 4-H finds this topic of mental health awareness very important. We're an organization of young people and adults working together. And we all know that young people are dealing with themselves, their peers, and their family members, all of who may or may not have some kind of mental illness or mental health issues at various levels. We will find out, as we know, that mental health problems come in all levels with all kinds of people at any opportunity. Some of them are lifelong, some of them are come and get treatment and people can move on from them. But what we've learned is that communicating about mental health and with people that have those issues is important, and we know that understanding the issues is important. What we all also know is that 4-H is a youth and family program, and that caring relationships develop within our program. Well, what happens when there's caring relationships? What happens is that people get to know each other very well, youth to youth, youth to adult, youth to younger youth, and people start sharing. Well, I have found from my experience, very specific personal experience, that teenagers, when they see something is different with someone, a peer or an adult, they tend to shy away from that person unless they're invited to talk about it. But it seems as though when they are invited to talk about mental health issues and whatever might be perceived as different with someone, that these teens will engage about it and they will be supportive of the individual and of the situation. I, like I said, have experienced that very, very personally, and so I am very much a proponent of this program that you're going to learn about. So what you're going to learn about today is an opportunity that we took advantage of last fall, and we had several hundred 4-H youth participate in Text Talk Act on a particular day last fall that Raquel will probably mention. But what we looked at is the month of June for this year. We know that in some places in the country, school programs are still going on in June. 4-H programs in schools are opportunities to come into the school classroom. We know that for 4-Hers that experience 4-H through club meetings, that June is in many cases a high club meeting month. We know that teen leadership groups like ambassadors, junior leaders, mentor groups, teens as teachers, they're meeting in the summer. Lots of 4-H camps, lots of 4-H conferences, and we feel that all of these are opportunities to have a group of young people participate in Text Talk Act to raise that comfort level of talking about mental health with their peers and adults that are in their support system. So I'm going to be here during the session. Raquel's going to talk about what it's all about, how it works. I want to encourage you to promote this to any youth development, 4-H or non-4-H organization for this summer. We want there to be a lot of participation in the month of June. So Raquel, I hope that gives a little bit of an explanation about why we feel this is an important partnership, and I encourage you to explain to everybody what we're all about.
Great. Thank you so much, Doug. So just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'll give you a little bit of a background on the broader Creating Community Solutions initiative, but then I'm going to dive right into the Tech Talk Act program and talk to you all about Tech Talk Act for 4-H in June, as well as provide you with some organizing tips for how you might go about integrating this into your after-school activities or your summer camp. So before I talk too much further, let's do just a quick poll, and this is just a tell us about yourself poll. This is a multiple choice, so if you don't see the correct answer, then just hit the other and then enter that into the chat box, just so that we know a little bit about who you all are. Wow, you guys are super fast. Everyone has voted within 20 seconds. So let's see. We have 43% of you are state level 4-H staff, 29% are field level, and then the remaining 29% is in the other category. So we have state level family living as one of the others in the category. Let me go ahead and share that real quick. Okay, so that's helpful just to know kind of where folks are coming from today. So first, just something a little bit broader, which is the National Dialogue on Mental Health. This is how it all started. So about 2.5 years ago, President Obama called for a national dialogue on mental health. This happened after the Sandy Hook shooting. One of the things that he said that really stuck out in my mind when he called for that national dialogue is that only 40% of people with mental illness receive treatment. We would not accept that for any other disease. And really the work that I have been doing the past 2.5 years has been to really change the conversation so that people think of mental health just as they would physical health. So if somebody in their family has cancer, everyone rallies around that family. If somebody in a family has mental health, you know, we're trying to change the dialogue so that there's support structures and people feel like they can talk about it. So after the call for the national dialogue, we partnered with the Obama administration and specifically SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and created something called Creating Community Solutions. So members of the Obama administration knew that there needed to be community conversations about mental health and that this really couldn't be spearheaded by the federal government. So they actually reached out to my executive director. I just want to make sure everybody is seeing slides here. Doug, you're saying that you're not seeing any slides?
I'm no longer seeing them. After you went to the poll, then it just goes back, it's gone back to that kind of white page that describes it. I don't know if others are seeing.
Okay, here, let me go back.
Now I see them.
Now you're seeing it. The poll closed it. Okay, all right. So you missed a picture of the president. Here, let me just go back so you can see there he is at the White House conference for mental health. So anyway, so Creating Community Solutions was created as a way to provide information, tools, and resources to local communities. So we formed a coalition of 6 organizations, and we worked to put materials together and have been supporting communities in hosting dialogues at the community level on mental health. To date, we've supported, this number is probably up to over 260 now, where we've given people resources and dialogue guides to help the community come together and talk about the barriers to mental health and to come up with a prioritized list to help to address those barriers. Many of those communities are moving into the action planning and implementation stage, and so we're starting to see some amazing progress. One of my favorite stories is in Washington, D.C., and so there, the community identified housing for transition-age youth. And as a result of that, Washington, D.C. reached out to a private developer and worked with them to take some housing and to convert it into housing for transition-age youth that had a mental health diagnosis. So today there is now a 44-bed apartment complex for those youth. And there's a program where the city works with the youth to try to ensure that they are employed, so they have relationships with different employers. And the youth live there for up to a year. 30% of the money that they make while they're there is put into a savings account, which the young people get when they leave the housing complex, that they have money to put towards a down payment or a first month's rent on an apartment. So there's lots of stories like that that are now popping up of things that are actually happening from those community dialogues that we help to support. We did a 3-tier strategy. We had lead cities. These were large mayor-initiated events. And then we had community conversations that were more organic. They mostly started with somebody that had been personally affected by mental health, and then they brought the community together to host these conversations. And then finally, we knew that we needed a youth-focused engagement. And so that's where Text Talk Act comes in. So the challenge is, we know that 3/4 of all mental health problems present themselves before the age of 24. We were seeing great results in terms of people coming to the in-person meetings, but we really wanted to find a way to reach out to young people where they were. And so that was how we ended up creating Text Talk Act. We basically put it on their cell phone. And so as all of you know, text messaging is the preferred communication method for young people. So what we basically did is we took the series, the dialogue, the questions, and put it into a text messaging script that then walks groups through a conversation. So on the day of any event, whenever the group is ready, they sit down and they sit down in small groups. So groups of 3 to 4 work best, with 1 cell phone per group. And then they text START to the number 89800. From there, their group receives a series of text messages with discussion questions that they talk about amongst their group, and then they text their responses back in. When they text their responses back in, that gives us the ability to collect data in terms of different ideas that they have. So lots of times we'll have like a brainstorming question on what schools or organizations can do to promote mental health. So we're hearing firsthand from the young people on what they would like to see to help to promote mental health programs in their community. So just quickly on how this was developed, we really took a lot of the questions that we had from the in-person meetings. That's how we started it. But then we formed a brain trust that consisted of dialogue experts, mental health professionals, young people, and social media experts. And then we worked through a series of iterations to get the text messaging script that you'll actually see today on the cell phone. And then finally, in order to get this information out, we've utilized youth organizers. So we found people, young people that either are in high schools or colleges that have helped to organize different events at their schools. And then finally, in terms of promotions, we also had some strong partners. So obviously 4-H is a great partner of ours. Active Minds has been wonderful. The American School Counselors Association, National Association of School Psychologists. So all of these groups have helped to either co-host a date or they've helped to promote Text Talk Act to their network. So in terms of the results that we've seen so far, it's been very, very successful. My favorite thing is that the kids love doing it. They love getting the questions and different social media interactions on their cell phone. So it's a positive experience for these young people. To date, we've had over 45,000 do participate in the 1-hour Text Talk Act conversation. Based on follow-up surveys, we know that the participants have been ethnically and geographically diverse. We've had participants in all 50 states, and then we've had a pretty big showing on the social media, especially using the hashtag Text Talk Act. So last spring, we've commissioned an independent evaluation to evaluate the effectiveness of Text Talk Act. And what we found was that it is statistically significant in terms of the platform's ability to increase participants' comfort level talking about mental health, their likeliness to seek information coming out of the Text Talk Act conversation. And then my favorite is it increases their ability to recognize a peer that's in need, and it also increases their ability and comfort level to know what to do to reach out to that peer in need. So again, Doug talked about a bit about how if you can just open up the conversation from a mental health perspective, that young people are willing and ready and wanting to help to rally around and provide that peer support. What this conversation does, and again, it's because we have these small groups. I think part of it is the small groups are the key. So we have small groups that are talking about mental health, many of them for the very first time, and sharing experiences that they've had, and realizing that they're not alone in their struggles with stress management and some with anxiety. And so what we end up finding that happens with these small groups is that they end up rallying around each other and really becoming a peer support network to each other. And so we've seen instances in that respect where groups have really come together and said, how can I support you? I had no idea that you were struggling, and what can I do to help to make it easier on you? And then finally, as I mentioned before, we consistently receive feedback where participants have said that they love using the technology. So many of them, because a lot of this happens in classroom settings. So many of them are really excited that they actually get to use their cell phone in class as opposed to having to put it away. And so again, we're appealing to their preferred methods of communication and the technology that they prefer to use. So back to the evaluation for a second. One of the things that we found that was most interesting is that those participants at the beginning of the evaluation reported very slight to no familiarity with mental health. What we found was that by the end of the 1-hour conversation through Text Talk Act, they reported having a much higher kind of learning curve in terms of how far they came across the spectrum in learning and understanding mental health. So while it works well for all students, it's especially those that have little prior knowledge that end up learning the most, is what we found. And then just one more thing from our evaluation was we also asked them what the best ways are to engage youth on mental health. And so interestingly enough, they said face-to-face conversation, social media, and Text Talk Act. And so this is great because Text Talk Act integrates all three of those things. It utilizes that small group face-to-face conversation. We include social media interactions, and then obviously it's all delivered through the Text Talk Act platform. So let me turn now to what we have planned coming up for the month of June. As Doug mentioned last November, Text Talk Act and 4-H partnered on a specific day. We did it on November 9th, and that was the day when 4-Hers could use the Text Talk Act platform in their student clubs or their groups and through different programming. What we've decided this time around, based on, first the interest level that we received from 4-H and the hundreds of participants that joined us that day, is that we'd really like to make Text Talk Act available to 4-H for the entire month of June. And the idea with having it available the month of June is so that it can be integrated through end-of-year school programming or after-school clubs, and then finally so that it can be used in summer camp. we feel as though this could be a great opportunity to do a mental health and wellness segment, especially in summer camp. And really, the Text Talk Act platform can help to deliver that introductory mental health conversation that so many of the 4-H youth can benefit from. So there is a bit of an incentive. We did decide to do a Text Talk Act contest. And the way that this is going to work is that you can get your 4-Hers together anytime throughout the month of June. We'll have a specific text message in there where we'll ask them what state they're participating from. And the state that gets the most participants will end up winning the cash prize for the state 4-H program. So we will be granting a state 4-H program $1,000 for them to then be able to use for additional programming activities. And I included the bit.ly link. Again, I'll send this webinar out to all of you with the pertinent links so that you can revisit it. But you can learn more on our webpage about the 4-H and Text Talk Act contest. And I should mention, unlike with other previous contests that we've done, you don't need to pre-register. You just need to have your group do it in June and then have them text in the state that they're joining from in order to get your participants to get the credit for their participation. So what you can do, the first thing that I always suggest to people that are new to Text Talk Act is to actually try it out. So that way you have a good idea of how the technology works and what the types of questions are. So the platform, as I mentioned, is going to be available throughout the entire month of June, but it's actually up and available right now. So you can do it technically anytime now through the end of June. The month of June is kind of the special 4-H month, but the platform is up and live. So what I would recommend is to find just a small group and to text START to the number 89800, and then you'll see the sequence of text messages from there so that you can kind of get a better understanding of how it works and how the conversation flows. And then if after trying it, you think that this is something that would be of interest to 4-H members, certainly bring Text Talk Act to your summer camp or to your school program. Again, the month of June is the big push for 4-H as a great way to really demonstrate 4-H's support for mental health. And then finally, if you know of others that might be interested in Text Talk Act, even beyond 4-H, other youth or youth groups, certainly you can send them the information for them to join as well. Okay, and with that, let me try and do a polling question and make sure that my slides come back up afterwards. So this is just a short one. In terms of Text Talk Act, where are you considering integrating it in your program? And so you may not have the answer quite yet, but just curious if you're thinking of a summer camp or an after-school setting, an in-school setting, or other, and then go ahead and type that into the chat box. And while we're waiting for people to vote, the one other thing I wanted to say about last November, so when we partnered with 4-H, we've partnered with a bunch of groups that have a youth-based focus. So we've hosted different days, like for Active Minds and for the National Association of School Psychologists and other youth-based groups. The interesting thing that I found from the November day that we did with 4-H was the data that came from the students. It was really rich in terms of how thoughtful their answers were, and I just felt like it spoke a lot. It was also very respectful, so we monitor everything online to make sure that it's a respectful tone. And I'm happy to say on that day we didn't have to take or modify any comments. It was a very respectful, very thoughtful dialogue and very great ideas that they all had given. And I think that just speaks a lot to the 4-H community. All right, so with that, let me go ahead and share these results. So most of you are thinking about doing it in an after-school setting, 29% in a summer camp, and then the remaining 29% in other. And so one person said with each club and with our camp counselors. I think that's actually a great idea to do it with camp counselors, especially if you're considering integrating Text Talk Act throughout the entire camp. It'd be a great start to do it with the counselors themselves, and then have them help to promote Text Talk Act. All right, so let me go ahead and close that and reshare my screen. Okay, so you all should see a slide now that says tips for getting organized. If you do not, please let me know. So in terms of doing Text Talk Act with your group, the first thing to do that helps is to form a team of people to help to organize your event. So obviously, you know, you've gone through the text messaging platform, you've tried it perhaps with a small group, and then the next thing is to think about the people that are going to help to implement this event. So if you're in a school setting, who at school should be involved in planning the event? And if you're in a summer camp, who at the summer camp should be involved? So, you know, I've obviously listed counselors as a potential group that could help to organize it. And then certainly once you have your organizing group together, have your team do Text Talk Act together. It always helps for everyone to fully understand how the platform and technology works, and then what the conversation, how it flows. And then make a plan. So identify key organizing strategies, decide the when and where in terms of where you want to host your event. As I said, it's available throughout the entire month of June. So it literally is, you could literally do it any day at any time. So you just divide your groups up and have them text into the platform, and the platform is there waiting for you. And then consider opening Text Talk Act up to others in the community. This could be a great 4-H effort in terms of doing some community engagement and seeing if you can get some other folks to join. And then finally, spread the word. So invite as many people as you can. It always helps to do personal invitations, especially if you're trying to reach out to a broader section of the community. We have found that personal invitations are the best way to go, so that it's coming from an actual individual. And then reach out to existing groups that you think might be interested. We have flyers that you can order ahead of time. So if that's something that you'd like to have, they basically have all of the Text Talk Act information, and then you just fill out your group information and the location, meeting place. So that's something that you can order. That's free for us to send to you to help to promote your event. And then we've found the more you do pizza or some sort of food is a great motivator for young people. And sometimes that just helps to loosen up the event. So lots of groups have hosted pizza parties, and they sat down and had pizza and done Text Talk Act as they've eaten their meal. And then other groups have also added different prizes and incentives for people to join and to participate. So the last thing I'll say just before we go to questions is on our website, there's an organizing guide. There's also a mental, so this is new this year, we've created a mental health information flyer that just gives a little bit of a mental health intro and talks a little bit about some of the common mental health illnesses. Again, there's the event flyers, and you can learn about the contest. And so that right there is the link to our website, which I will send to you afterwards as well. So with that, let me open it up to questions. If you have questions about Text Talk Act and how it works, please go ahead and enter them into the chat box, and we can go ahead and work on those. One thing I think that as you guys are typing in your questions, one thing I think I mentioned is the length of Text Talk Act. It typically takes groups anywhere from 45 minutes to 1 hour for them to complete the entire sequence of text messages. And the other thing that is sometimes helpful is so you can text into the platform now and see how the different questions, how the questions flow. I also have a Word document that kind of outlines the script, so you can see all of the questions in the sequence of text messages all in one. I'm more than happy to share that with you if you think if that would be helpful, in talking with other people about getting it organized. Okay, so we have one question. Tech Talk Act is primarily for high school and college age. How has it worked with younger students? That's a great question, Gail. So Tech Talk Act definitely is for high school and college age students. We have done it with middle school students before, and it's worked well. I would not recommend doing it anything younger than middle school. I just don't think that the students would really get some of the discussion questions and the concepts as much. In the middle school audience area, I do recommend that you have more adults on hand, especially just to get them started. So I've actually done it with a middle school group before, and I found just the setup takes a little bit longer, and it's helpful to have an adult in the room making sure that they understand how to text into the platform. But from there, they really can just go through the text message questions and have a really thoughtful discussion. The other side of that is it's helpful too in case any students would like to talk afterwards, especially in the middle school age, just to have an adult nearby. And Andy just made a comment, the Word document would be very helpful. So I'll just go ahead and send that script out to all of you when I send the webinar link as well, so that you have that in your hands. And Gail asked, you encourage letting parents know their child will be doing Tech Talk Act. We get that question a lot, and it certainly is something to consider. On our website, we actually have a sample letter that you can use to send to parents. It is important for parents to know that this type of conversation is a mental health awareness activity. And so it's very positive, and it focuses on students thinking about how they can take care of their mental health and things that they can do to combat stress. So it's always helpful for parents to kind of know that ahead of time. And then on our website, there is a link where you can download a template that could go to parents. Okay, I think that's all of the questions that have come in. Let me give you my contact information. So if you do think of any other questions afterwards, please feel free to either call me or email me. And I will, like I mentioned, I'll send you all the links to the webinar along with the different resources and website links, so that you have it all in one comprehensive email. And other than that, I'd say thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all now to June to help to bring Tech Talk Act to your events. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you, Raquel.